Testosterone in the house, baby. You check out Zach. Zach loves Bush. And a lot of people do. And, you know, you should.
You have to.
But the issue with Bush is that he hasn't been producing at that high of a level. It's been surprising to me. And although we're not supposed to be really breaking down that matchup yet, real quickly about Reggie Bush, tell me what you think. What's going on there with him?
They don't have Deuce. They're missing Deuce. So they're trying to give Reggie those, you know, up the middle carries, his tough yards, and it's just not his style.
He's not built for that.
No, he's an outside guy. He's a out of the backfield catching ball guy. He's a line up in the slot guy.
Yeah. But still, you have to start him because at any time he could pop from the 20 and go 80 for a score. So craziness in the NFL. It's been a wild season. And this season, again, 6 teams on bye in Week 8. We dubbed it the Bye-pocalypse. So a little bit thinner lineups this weekend. And believe it or not, although we've got a local Browns pimp in Yeasty, I am the Browns pimp now. I'm claiming the Browns. Yeasty won't.
I don't think you can legally do that.
He won't necessarily claim them, although he likes the Browns. Usually the Browns stood for stinky, you know, trying to pick the best turd. However, now they've got something going on, and the Browns go to St. Louis to play the Rams. This is going to be an interesting game, Zach. In one league, I'm thinking about playing 4 Browns because I think they're going to roll.
And most of the time, I'd tell you you're crazy, but no, I can't. I can't. Not this week. Not against the Rams. Probably be a high-scoring game.
Everybody who invested heavily in Steven Jackson has been crying in their beer all season because of the wicked bad groin tear. There's rumor that Steven Jackson might play in this game. Tell me what you think, Zach. I see a little bit of rust from him. Don't you think he'll have to shake some rust off?
And not only that, if he plays, I don't see him getting the full workload like a fantasy owner would want him to. I think Leonard will still be in there and getting his fair share of carries. So Steven, he'll probably get 12 to 15 carries, maybe catch a couple passes out of the backfield. So they're not going to stick him in there. He's not going to be a workhorse right away. So.
Right. They'll want to get him some important touches. If they get down to the goal line, they could give him a goal line touch. If you have some really bad bye issues and he plays, go ahead and put him in there because he could get the goal line looks, and you'll look like a genius if he does. So play him, but reserve your expectations for him. Cleveland, I'm really impressed with them. They're coming off their bye. Their passing game has been dynamic. I really like Braylon Edwards here this weekend. I know that in the past, both you and I have been Jamal Lewis fans. How do you like Jamal here in this game?
I think he'd be solid if he's playing. He'll be a solid play this week. The Rams against the run, or against the Rams defense period, has just been very poor. As long as as well as the Browns. So I expect a high-scoring game. So I'd play a lot of my Cleveland Browns. I'd play Jamal if he plays, or even Jamal Wright if he plays, if Jamal Lewis isn't in. Because now that he's a receiving threat too, so they're going to have to use him. And Braylon Edwards has just been on fire this year. And the Rams' pass defense is one of the worst in the league, so you can't sit Braylon. And Kellen and Derek Anderson.
If you'd have told me at the beginning of the season that when the Cleveland Browns matched up against the St. Louis Rams, that the Cleveland Browns would be the team that had a shot at the playoffs, but the Rams were winless, I would have thought you're crazy. But they have no passing game. Mark Bulger potentially could play in this game. If he does, how do you like Torrey Holt?
Well, Bulger played last week, but again, it all comes down to their offensive line. Their offensive line is horrendous right now. They can't protect anybody. And Bulger's running for his life, and he just doesn't have time to throw. I think Holt's still at 80-some yards because he's the only guy really to throw it right now. And then if Bulger's going to find a guy downfield, it's more than likely going to be Holt. So. Holt makes a decent play.
I mean, you got to play him.
And Cleveland's defense is.
You spent like a second rounder on him. Moving right along, Oakland at Tennessee, 2 surprisingly undervalued running backs from the preseason, having a nice run so far. Lamont Jordan and Lendell White. We both like Lendell White a little bit more. Give me your take on Lendell. I know you're a Lendell aficionado.
Yeah, I got Lendell in three leagues actually, and he's been pretty solid for me. I was able to pick him up as my 3rd and 4th running back, and he's producing really solid for number 3, and even a pretty good number 2 in the last few weeks. What's nice about Lendell is he gets all the goal line carries, and he's only averaging 3.5, but he's getting his carries. He's getting 20 carries a game, so he's getting the opportunities that you want out of your running back. So, and then Chris Henry, he was activated last week, and he had a handful of carries, and he got one of the touchdowns. But they were up big in that game when he got his touchdown. So, and Lendell was in there at the end of the game when they were trying to go down for their winning score. So.
And they won that game. Surprisingly, Rob Baronis setting the NFL record for the most field goals kicked in one game. Do not chase the stat line on him. Although he makes a decent bye week, Phil, don't expect huge numbers out of him.
What, not 29 every week?
The Tennessee Titans are a surprise against the run. #1 team stopping the run so far this season. And don't you think that Lamont Jordan's going to have a hard time finding room to run?
Not only that, he's kind of been slowing down after those 3 hot weeks.
Yep.
And then Dominic Rhodes was active again last week, and he actually had almost half the carries as well. So, Dominic Rhodes is going to get in there, and they're going to start sharing a little bit more now. So. It'd be a tough week to play Lamont. If you have to play him, you can put him in there because he does have that opportunity of catching balls out of the backfield.
He's a great all-purpose threat.
Yeah, definitely so.
And that should continue here in this game through the air. Buffalo at the Jets. I'll start. I'm a pretty big Lee Evans guy. I know that almost is something I shouldn't admit. I was very pleased to see 98 yards out of him in last week's game against the Ravens.
Double his yearly total.
And I really believe that he's going to get going because I personally would rather see the Akron Community College secondary is going to be better than the Jets. So go ahead and play Lee Evans this weekend, especially if you've got bye issues. As far as the Jets goes, I know you invested a little bit in Thomas Jones in a couple leagues as a buy low type player. How do you like Thomas Jones here this weekend?
He could be solid in this game. I'm not sure what happened last week. He got his carries, just wasn't getting any yards on him. So he had 2 weeks ago. He had a really good game against Philly. He had to get 130 yards.
Still no touchdown.
No touchdowns, and that's just the lack of them getting in the red zone. And when they do, they tend to throw a little bit more. Lawrence Coles has. I think he's got 6 touchdowns already, and most of them, I believe, are inside the 10. Last week he had a couple longer ones, but before that he had 3-yard grabs, 2-yard touchdowns. So he's just not getting the opportunities inside the 5 like you would like him to. So
the Bills
he'd be a solid play this week though against the Bills.
Right. And the Bills secondary very poor as well. These two teams, I think it's going to be a little lower scoring game just because they're in the same division, and that they're going to want to win. Both these teams are going to want to win big time. Thomas Jones really makes a good bye week play. Eventually, he's going to get in the end zone.
And he's a solid number 3 back. If he's your number 3 back, don't worry about it. Put him in there.
Yeah, especially during the bye-apocalypse. Another running back in this game, Marshawn Lynch. I think he's going to have a nice game. A lot of room to run against the Jets. Not a lot of defense here in this game.
No. Marshawn Lynch is one of those guys. He's played some tough defenses and he's put up numbers.
Yep.
He's just a tough physical runner. Yep. And he's also a receiving threat too. So.
Yeah. If you're trying to depend on either of the Jets or the Bills' defense for your bye-apocalypse, you're in big trouble. There's got to be a better option for you. Please don't watch this show and then go pick up either the Bills or the Jets.
Go get the Browns D.
Yeah, at least the Browns. They have Romeo Crennel as their coach. The Jets' passing game has been on fire. Both Lavernius Coles and Jericho Cotchery had touchdowns in last week's game, so they're going to continue their passing ways. They're the Jets, so they're going to throw the ball.
Lavernius Coles is having an outstanding season.
Yeah, he's been great.
He's 3rd in receiving touchdowns.
So we've been going a little bit quickly through these matchups because we wanted to take a little extra time for Houston at San Diego. There's a big-time development in Southern California. Unless you live under a rock, you know that there's wildfires going on like crazy down there. The Santa Ana winds are blowing along. Some people think that it's God's wrath raining down on Southern California. Regardless to say, LaDainian Tomlinson and Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates all had to evacuate their homes, and they're looking at possibly playing this game that should be played in Qualcomm Stadium at Texas Stadium because the Dallas Cowboys are on bye. They've also talked about ideally they want to play it at the Arizona Cardinals Stadium, but the Cardinals are hosting a motorcycle rally all weekend.
Or they play at Reliant.
So they won't be able to do that. That they don't want to play at Reliant Stadium. So at this point right now, I think that the front runner is Sun Devil Stadium in Arizona. It's the shortest distance for each of the two teams to travel. And my question to you, Zach, is given this particular situation, I know you haven't been through a house fire, but would you think that this would be enough for the Chargers to be distracted and therefore falter against Houston Texans?
I don't see why that would make any difference. It's just one of those things that happens you don't really prepare for. So I think they'll be just fine. Yeah.
Being uprooted never helps, especially for an NFL team. However, it could totally be the opposite in that the Chargers, the game itself might be enough of a distraction from the stress of life and the fire that they're relieved to get back on the field. They haven't been able to prepare. Their practices have been moved to Arizona, and the reason is because Qualcomm Stadium is housing 10,000 basically refugees, people who've been evacuated from their homes. So keep an eye on what's going on in this game. But start all of your San Diego Chargers, they're coming off the bye, and I think they're going to be hot. Houston, I think they left it all on the field last week, and they came out with a loss. Tough for them. But don't you love LT this weekend and all the Chargers?
All the Chargers. Not only that, they might be a little more amped up, and they want to put on a good show for their fans back home, who were probably a little bit down this week with all that's going on.
A la the Saints of last season.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's make a little extra that can kind of push them to play a little bit harder.
Yeah. I think you might be right about that. It's been interesting this week to follow this story. Our hearts and our prayers go out to the people in Southern California. You never like to see somebody, burned out of house and home. So
Very scary.
And it helps for perspective, because although we do this show, we love it, a lot of work goes into it, there's so many more things that are important. So although we want you to watch this show from 9:30 to 10:30 on MCN Channel 6, and then come on to the Fat Chat on www.testosteronesports.com, don't forget to tuck in your kids before the show starts. Pat them on the head, give them a kiss on the cheek, take out the garbage for your lady, because you know that those types of things are eternal investments. Fantasy football is just earthly, and although it is earthly, I love to dominate, and I've been doing that this year, especially in the tough league, baby.
So far, season's half over.
5-2, man.
That's why you don't go out halfway through the season.
If you're big money, you can, defending champion. So we're going to take another break, and we're going to be right back. So grab a soda pop, grab a beer, get the chips, and join us back here. 2-2, we'll be right back to break down the final few matchups.